I just passed my ATF FFL interview, and here's how you can too. Today I'm going to be detailing how I prepared for my ATF FFL interview, what I did beforehand, what I did when they first contacted me, and what I did when they got here and actually conducted the interview. I'm going to walk you through chronologically what happened during the interview and what the next steps after the interview is. The overall process was about an hour and a half for me, but I have also been in the industry for 9 years. So your results may vary. It may be longer, it may be shorter, who knows. So to start with, they contacted me at the ATF, the Nashville group at the ATF, who oversees Tennessee, and in our case, Eastern Tennessee. We're a Sneedville, Tennessee-based dealer. And the ATF IOI that I spoke to, Industry Operations Investigator, was actually based out of Greenville, so not super far away, a little bit closer, definitely not as far as Nashville. But he called me at probably 5 or 6 in the evening yesterday, and he said, hey, when's a good time to come out? I said, basically, I'm free all the time. And he said, well, what if I come out there tomorrow, which is today, at 10 a.m.? And I said, yeah, I'm down for that. Let's go ahead and get it done. So at that point, I went through a checklist of different things. What you need to know for yourself if you're preparing for an FFL interview. First of all, make sure you have your youth handgun safety form present in any customer-facing areas. The second is you need a copy of FBI NICS delay and deny pamphlets. You can also have just a stack of them available for customers to take, but at minimum you need 2 of them hung up so they have the information. You also need to have free gun locks available with a display that says for free. Because if you're selling used guns, not all guns will come with the gun locks. Most new guns nowadays come with at least 1 gun lock. So they have you covered there, but used guns, you definitely need to have that. And that is something they're trained to look for. So before he even arrived for my interview, I had these things knocked out. If you're familiar with my previous videos, we needed all of my business documents ready to go. That includes all of your application prerequisites, but especially relevant to the interview, he wanted to see my zoning and, in my case, Tennessee Secretary of State LLC corporation documents. That's the 2 that he really needed. Those he wanted a copy of right on the spot. Fast forward to today when he got here, I met him. He was very punctual and to the point. When he got here, I showed him all of my posted material, my gun locks. He said, okay, this looks good. You obviously know what you're doing. You're prepared for this. We sat down. He knocked out a bunch of his behind-the-scenes paperwork, and then we started the formal interview. So the first thing that he went through with me was, I am used to a North Carolina version of how to conduct a firearm sale. So he walked me through how it's different in Tennessee, and anywhere that you do this in across the 50 states will be different. But in my case, he walked me through the differences of the state level background check system. In this case, it's called TICS, TIC, Tennessee Instant Check System, versus the FBI provided National Instant Check Service, NICS, or NICS. The biggest difference with TICS is there is no way to skip a background check. Let's say if you have a concealed carry, and he walked me through the process of how to get registered with TICS. My understanding is it's a little bit more exhaustive than NICS. With TICS, they do both a state level and a federal background check. So if you have any state level crimes that a person has committed, those will show up where they may not show up on a federal background check. So it's a little bit more of an intensive process. The other thing is TICS incorporates a firearm search as far as if the gun is stolen or if law enforcement is looking for a gun with that serial number. In North Carolina, the biggest difference was they had a service called Leads Online, where a dealer would post serial number or the details of a gun, and it was made available to law enforcement across the country. They had the opportunity, but not the confirmation for a dealer that the gun could be reported stolen. So with Leads, it was kind of like a passive system. With TICS, you have a confirmation right then and there that says this gun is not stolen, nobody's looking for it, and you're good to proceed with the sale. But the downside to TICS is no matter what, every gun that you have passed through your license, the background check fee is $10 per transaction. Now, the background check is good for 30 days. So I have yet to look into it. It's possible you can reuse a check if it's within 30 days, especially if you're paying $10 per check. That's something I will have to research and do further fact finding to figure out if that is the case. With NICS, that was not a problem because it was free, it was easy, it was simple. TICS is a little bit different. So that's one of the biggest things that he walked me through and made me aware of. But he also walked me through, as he is required, all of the federal paperwork, the ATF Form 4473, which we'll talk about in probably a more detailed video, how to fill those out. That is your firearms transaction record. Ever since the 1968 Gun Control Act, all federal dealers have had to fill out a transaction record, the 4473. You're required to keep those forms the length of your license. But something I was made aware of is not only can you keep them in paper form, which is what almost everybody does, but now you can record those forms in electronic format. He said that they need to be saved multiple places, so like if your laptop or computer is smashed or whatever, or you lost it or theft has occurred, that you still have a copy of your records. So what I am thinking I will do for that is a cloud service will host my electronic copies of my records. He said as long as you do that, the only requirement is that they are searchable, especially by serial number, or in my case by file name. The same way that you would write the form number or transaction number in the top right of the 4473. You just need to be able to easily search these records in a file format. But the other requirement is that it be hosted in the United States. So some file cloud service hosts are not in the United States, and that could be potentially compromised if some other country wanted to look through your documents and look at customer sensitive info, especially because the 4473 technically is a federal document and they consider that federal property. That's not actually the store's property. That's not even the customer's property. That's federal property. So if you as a store or you as an individual destroy that, you're technically destroying federal property. So they have very strict requirements on what you can and can't do with the Form 4473. But as opposed to having boxes and boxes of transaction records, it's a lot easier now just to store these files electronically. And I believe he said that this law or ruling was passed in 2021, so it's a very recent thing, this being 2025. The next thing he walked me through was making sure that my application was free from errors. A lot of people, and especially I think I talked about this in filling out the FFL application, if you're filing under an LLC, you need the name on the license to match your doing business as name. So I, as an individual, I'm not licensed, but the corporation, C. Stevens Gunworks, is licensed. It just happens that I'm the sole owner and sole member. So that was one error we had to fix. Fixing your ATF FFL application is pretty simple. It's the same way you would amend a transaction record. You just strike through initial and date, and then sometimes they may request a reason for why you revised it. In my case, it was a pretty simple thing. So the next thing he walked me through was the difference in the various license types. I already covered that in our video on applying for the FFL. He just wanted to make sure I was aware of the different classes. Here at C. Stevens Gunworks, we're just a standard 01. He wanted to know if I ever wanted to continue manufacturing. I said maybe at one point, probably not in the first couple years. Then he asked me about SOT, Special Occupancy Tax. That has to do with the NFA, selling suppressors, machine guns, short barrel rifles, destructive devices. I said probably not this year, but probably next year before June, because the license goes June to June, and they're not prorated. So if I applied for it now, I probably wouldn't get it till August, and I'd be missing out on part of the year. So I'm not an SOT dealer yet. Next year that will change. But he just wanted to make me aware of the different classes of FFL and where you can go from here. Then he ran through abbreviated version of all of the regulations. They've got a little document they make you sign each little box. They tell you where you can find the references to the rulings, the Supreme Court cases, the ATF opinions, and where to find all those. But the biggest thing is the regulations are all available on the ATF's website directly. He said that's the greatest resource if you ever have a question. And that was really the heart of the interview, was just kind of going through each little snippet of what an FFL does, making sure you know how to properly do the paperwork. And overall, it was not a combative interview. It's more about making sure that you are compliant and able to do the job up to their requirements and what they require, especially for records keeping. Records keeping is one of the quickest ways to lose your license if you can't do it up to their standard. He even suggested I get a service like Fastbound, but I told him I've looked into it. At the scale that I'm doing, I probably won't need that for quite some time. I said if I ever get into any kind of automated listing services or drop shipping, I'll probably need something like that just to manage my orders. But for right now, I just do it by hand, and that's good enough, and that complies with all the federal requirements. And I walked him through my whole process. But overall, I will say that the ATF IOI, and there's only one for this area, he said. Eastern Tennessee, there may not be more than one or two. He said they're very understaffed. They don't have a lot of people. He didn't seem super strict. I get that he's probably like a one-man show, at least for this area. He did his job effectively, but he was not a hardliner. So that was fortunate for me. Your experience may vary. Some are very by the book, and some are kind of overboard. I've encountered that in our previous business where they just go above and beyond, make you fill out unnecessary forms that just cause extra headache on every sale. But he just went by each regulation. Here's what you have to do. Here's what you should do. Here's what's best practice. And he broke it down in those terms. So overall, our IOI industry operations investigator was kind of a middle ground. He wasn't too harsh. He wasn't too easy. He knew exactly the right amount of effort to put in on both of our parts. So it was a great balance. I'm very fortunate that we have the one that we have here. If you live in states like California, Maryland, New York, it's probably going to be a vastly different process to what I experienced out here. So overall, at the end of the interview, he said that I can expect my license in the mail in my hand about 2 weeks from now. He said, and I don't know if this is an official thing, but he said the biggest wait time on a license printing is that they just have to print the license. They use some kind of old system. It takes a while to work it through. It's probably from the original 1968 enactment of the Gun Control Act, so I believe he called it a dot matrix printer. I don't know what that is. Maybe somebody can tell me what that is in the comments. But as far as I know, there's just an old government system that has to print the licenses and then make it official so they can send it out to me. I actually do have an FFL number from this point, so I can actually start getting vendor accounts now because I am approved. I am a licensed federal dealer. I just don't have the license physically in my hand yet. So overall, I hope this post-interview after-action report can help you understand what to expect from your FFL interview. It was overall not a super difficult process. I probably went overboard on preparing. Even if you don't prepare at all, they can get you where you need. Definitely watch our previous videos on prerequisites, because doing all that work ahead of time saved us a lot of trouble and a lot of extra effort after the fact. If I didn't have zoning and if I didn't have my documents prepared and ready to go, it would have been a much more difficult interview. So it really pays to be prepared in that respect. But overall, not a difficult process. So that's all I have for you today. Please make sure to check out our website, cstevensgw.com. We're getting a lot of traction on Instagram and TikTok now. Those links will be in the description below. Stay tuned on our website. Our website will have new details coming soon. We'll have to rewrite some portions of it once I get my FFL. Eventually, we are going to have our own personal online store that will have firearms. So you'll be able to place your order there. But overall, we're getting one step closer to expanding our selection here at C. Stevens Gunworks. I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe.